Hello and welcome to my presentation on developing confidence and alleviating misconceptions through gamification. I'm Beverly Allen and I convene the Foundation Chemistry module on the Foundation Science programme at Nottingham University. The Foundation course is designed to get students with little or no science background at A level to the required level for access to a science-based degree, and therefore the course is very fast-paced and covers a lot of content very quickly. I've been looking at the role of games in the development of knowledge and understanding for some of the difficult to perceive concepts met in Foundation Chemistry, and I wanted to share two games that have been developed over this last academic year. The first with a colleague in engineering and the second developed by 5-year final project students in the School of Chemistry with support from their supervisor and colleagues in student academic skills who have been developing game strategies for student learning across the university. Games are thought to provide a route of learning through participation and social interaction, leading to the development of student knowledge, skills and attitudes. A key area where students struggle in Foundation Chemistry is understanding abstract concepts on a molecular scale, which often results in confused ideas and misconceptions. So two areas identified were structure and bonding and organic mechanisms, where the students learnt the content through a series of sessions made up of flipped and traditional lecture style, and then we held a workshop to play the game on those topics. So the first game is the bonding game, which is a simple card game. There are a set of question cards and 2 decks of element cards. A question card is turned over and then students take turns to choose an element card. When the required elements are present to answer the question correctly, the first student to shout bonding can then explain why those elements are correct with regard to the question. If the group agree with the explanation, then the student who gave the explanation keeps the card. The game then continues. The next question is turned and the process repeated. However, on this occasion, if the students don't agree with the explanation given by the student who shouts bonding first, then they can challenge through discussion. If no agreement is achieved through that discussion between the group, then they can ask the expert. So the idea of this simple card game was to develop explaining skills and enable students to come to a correct answer through discussion if there was any disagreement. So the second game is a board game where teams compete to reach the finish first. The idea of the game is to progress across the board by answering organic reaction questions, where the different shapes on the board refer to different organic mechanism types. So there are 2 teams of 3, and then each team is asked questions based on the reaction type associated with the shape that their counter is on the board. Points are then awarded for correct identification of functional group, the structure and the name of the product, the mechanism to get to that product, and the explanation provided. They can ask for hints if they're stuck on any one of those elements, but points are deducted for any hints given. And then the teams move forward by the number of points awarded. So the yellow counter here is now sat on an octagon, and the associated reaction with that is nucleophilic addition. So here's an example of the question card, and then on the back of that question card are some hints associated with each part of that question. So if we did the same with the pink group, let's say they then land on a square, they would then be asked an elimination reaction question, and again could ask for any hints associated with that. So in this case here, the students are working together in teams where they discuss amongst themselves, but then provide an explanation to the other team in order to gain points to move forward. A survey was completed by the students for both of the games. Now, for some of the comments, the games did not necessarily achieve the aims, as a significant proportion didn't feel their confidence improved or indeed didn't feel they learnt more by taking part and therefore didn't improve their understanding. Although there is a slightly more positive response for improved understanding and better learning experience for the team board game compared to the bonding game. More positively, the majority agreed that it provided an opportunity to explain concepts, was a useful learning tool and increased engagement with the topic. The most positive outcome was that most students that responded did identify how they were able to assess their own understanding, and maybe this provides more of a platform for students' self-reflection on their learning and understanding of a topic. Students were also asked to make any other comments relating to their experience in the workshops. For the bonding game, there was a mixture of positive and negative comments with some improvements that could be made. The key positives were this concept of teaching and learning with each other or from each other, improved engagement with the topic and providing discussion opportunities amongst themselves. The key negatives related to those that felt their knowledge was not as good as others in the group and they didn't feel comfortable or confident enough to get involved. And some of the improvements that were identified were that it would have been nice to have had an example of how it worked, some example answers or an answer booklet in order to help them with their discussions. For the second game on the organic mechanisms, all general comments were positive and mainly focused on sharing and discussing with others, having things explained by others, and indeed many of them enjoyed it and had lots of fun. The students also gave a good level of feedback on improvements, suggesting that the rules were too complicated. Hints were not that helpful at times, question phrasing not consistent with what they'd been used to in terms of maybe the language used in class. They would have found it useful to be able to prepare for the workshop, so using it a bit more like a revision exercise. So overall then, the bonding game was designed for individual response, requires fast response, individual reasoning, but enabled group discussion from any challenges raised. The positives were that it encouraged discussion, students could reflect on their own learning and it was a useful learning tool. However, negatively it was seen as not being as inclusive for those with less confidence or perceived understanding. The organic mechanisms, on the other hand, was a mixed ability team game. The teams took turns to answer questions. Discussion was within the teams, and then each team presented an explanation to gain points. The positives were the same in terms of allowing discussion and reflection on own learning, but it was found to be more inclusive for those with less confidence or understanding in that topic area, and was also found to be fun. There were no real negatives as an activity, but students had suggested improvements that could be made. So what have we learnt by going through this process of using games? So in terms of design, on the foundation programme we have a mixture of academic experience with some students having completed A-level chemistry previously. Therefore, grouping of students is important. So for individual based games, students in a group should be of a similar academic experience so that all can feel comfortable taking part in that process. But if we use the team game, it is good to mix up the experience, as those with less experience can learn from the more experienced teammates. In terms of student thoughts, a significant number didn't think they learnt more or improved their understanding, but students recognised that both games gave them the opportunity to reflect on their own learning. And then in terms of moving forward, we'd like to refine the two games for use in the coming academic year, given the student feedback that we received. And we want to maybe consider the use of these activities in an online format so that we could have some online synchronous small group discussions around these topics. So finally, thank you very much for listening. If you'd like any further details or want to discuss about the role of games in teaching and learning, then please feel free to contact me, and I'd love to have a chat with you.